Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I hope you're well. Look what we can do. Yes, as if one image of me is not enough to put you off your breakfast, you now have two. In truth, I've just tried this out ahead of the return of the Saturday Social Show in just a few weeks' time, but it does allow me to show you at least part of the baseball hat collection, which is up above my head there. Hope you can see that. And I'm going to say very good morning to Jeff Pinion, who's just oh no, that's well, that's confusing. I will be taking it off in a minute, Dan. I'm going to say good morning to Jeff Pinion. I'm sporting my Brock shirt, which Jeff kindly gave me some time ago. So yeah, there we are. Now, I tell you what, let's take that off just for a moment. We'll play around with that in a bit. I think there you are. That's more what we're looking for, isn't it? We do have a bit of breaking news for you in today's show. In fact, the details arrived so late that I've had to squeeze it into the middle of the show rather than actually leading with it. But if you're from north of the border, please stick around for a couple of minutes. And if you too are fed up with organisations leeching off this industry like some kind of parasite, then you might like to stick around too. Finally, for now at least, happy 4th of July to all our American viewers, and well done to your forebears for having the foresight to distance themselves from the shit show that the UK has since become. Just think, a couple of years ago, we were mocking the Americans for electing Donald Trump. The Yanks must be wetting themselves when they watch the UK news. Now, without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. It is Tuesday, the 4th of July. Happy Independence Day to those that are independent. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, PP O'Connor gets the nod at Fiddlers Ferry. CJ Charlton is crushing it. Sandvik harnesses data for greater machine control, plus Volvo. For Volvo, rather, there's no business like snow business. Plus, we'll also be talking about things that are literally breaking up in Scotland as we speak. And we'll get to all that in just a second. But first, let us peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this day in history. And on this day in 1829, London's first bus service began between Marylebone Road and Bank Junction. In 1862, Lewis Carroll created Alice in Wonderland while on a boat trip on the Thames. 3 years later to the day, it was published. In 1884, the Statue of Liberty was presented to the US during a ceremony in Paris. How did that work exactly? He is a whacking great statue. Good luck with getting it home again. A bit like bringing sombreros and straw donkeys back from Torremolinos. In 1944, the US Naval Fleet reported the first Japanese kamikaze attack. In 1996, the Hotmail service began and brought free email to the masses. And how's this for spooky? On this day in 1776, obviously 4th of July, US Congress declared independence from the UK. Exactly 50 years later, past presidents Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died on the 50th anniversary of that declaration. Now, I'm going to throw over to the chat because this didn't come up on my list of things for today, but according to Gary Muirhead, the National Health Service, long may she reign, the National Health Service is 75 years old today. Many happy returns to a fine institution that our current government seems to be intent on kicking the shit out of, but that's a whole other story. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me remind you of our question of the day. Yeah, that's right. Vacation or staycation? Would you rather travel overseas for a well-earned break this summer, or would you prefer to stay right here in the UK? Probably not much to choose between the two in terms of cost, although staying here does mean a bit less carbon emissions from air travel. So are you a vacation or a staycation? Let me know in the chat, and we'll come back to that at the end of the show. We need to do one of these. Yes, we start with the news that Manchester-based PP O'Connor has been given the nod on the contract to demolish the iconic cooling towers at the Fiddlers Ferry power station up in Warrington. Here's how we broke the news yesterday afternoon. Manchester-based PP O'Connor has been awarded the contract for the explosive demolition of the famous Fiddlers Ferry cooling towers. According to industry news portal Construction Inquirer, the first stage of the power station dismantling will include the phased demolition of the coal stock yard, 4 northern cooling towers and some of the former administrative buildings to the north of the site. PP O'Connor Managing Director Peter O'Connor said, "Fiddlers Ferry is a highly prestigious location and we are very proud to be involved in this project. We look forward to working with Peel NRE to achieve its vision in the regeneration of this strategic site. It is anticipated the site's cooling towers will be blown down by the end of January 2024. Yeah, congratulations to the team at PP O'Connor. I would imagine the competition for that one was absolutely immense. I look forward to seeing that blast when it happens. Now, speaking of implosions, the Scottish Plant Owners Association has leapt to the rescue after the organisers of the UK Plant Operator of the Year pulled the plug on the Scottish leg of its competition with just a few weeks' notice. The event will still go ahead, but it will do so without any input whatsoever from the previous organisers. Excuse me. The SPOA has issued a statement this morning that reads, "The Scottish Plant Owners Association, SPOA, and sponsors of the Scottish heat of the UK Plant Operator of the Year 2023 competition are incredibly disappointed to learn of the sudden cancellation of the event just last week. However, our commitment stands, and the SPOA, without any support or funding from the previous organisers, will be hosting the competition, now known as the Scottish Plant Operator Challenge, as planned at Errol Airfield on Saturday, the 22nd of July. To date, around 40 skilled plant operators have signed up to compete for from as far afield as Shetland, and there's still time to enter, with the closing date set for the 20th of July at 5 p.m. Now, I do have a link for this in just a second, but I'm struggling to post it on the chat, so I'll go and dig that out in a second. But the SPOA is calling on members to spread the word and to encourage others to enter the Scottish Plant Operator Challenge. The association is grateful to Maurice Leslie of Maurice Leslie Plant Hire for kindly offering to host the event free of charge at his Errol Airfield site on the same day as the famous classic plant and tractor working weekend. We continue to be grateful to Maurice Leslie Plant Hire, Blackwood Plant Hire, our Balgownie, JCB and Kubota for supporting the SPOA to take over the organisation of the event following its cancellation by the previous organiser. The SPOA would like to reassure all entrants and everyone involved that the SPOA will do everything in its power to make the event a success. Competitors will complete 6 challenges to test skill, speed, safety, adaptability, approach, flair, and general operator basics. Now, for further information, I'm going to post a link in the chat just as soon as I've dug it out of my emails, but keep watching. But all those that are up in Scotland, so Gary, Steve, anybody else that's watching from north of the border, if you can possibly help support this and help pull this out of the fire, because the previous organisers have rather dropped the SPOA in it. And unfortunately, this just goes to show that there are very much two types of organisations in this industry of ours. There are those that, like the SPOA, bend over backwards to support the sector and those within it. And there are those that merely wish to leech off the industry. I wish the Scottish Plant Owners Association every success with their event. Now, I realise this is very short notice, but I also know we've got a very strong Scottish contingent among our audience. So Gary, Steve, and the rest of you Bonnie Scots out there, please help us spread the word and make this event a rip-roaring success. And let's make sure that the original organisers regret their decision to pull out with just a couple of weeks' notice. Now, this is an interesting take on things. Steve Williamson at Steve Earthmoving says, I applied 3 times for that plant operator of the year and got not a single reply. Maybe I'm too good. All that aside, maybe you are too good, but what I would say is I would definitely say try again, because I think it's probably in much better hands right as we speak. Now, just before we go any further, I do actually have that link for you now. I'm not going to dress it up at all. If you would like to know more about the Scottish Plant Owners Association event that is just a couple of weeks away now, you will find the details in the chat right about now. Now, let me see. Let me get back to where I was supposed to be. During my visit to the new headquarters of the National Federation of Demolition Contractors last Friday, I bumped into Chris Charlton of CJ Charlton. Setting aside the fact that he was wearing a very fine pair of shoes, we got to talking about how he is using video to record his company's progress while promoting its accomplishments across social media. Well, he's been at it again. I have to say, I find it a bit surprising that more companies aren't following Chris Charlton's example and making greater use of video. CJ Charlton is still a relatively small firm, but in this kind of video allows them to punch well above their weight. Funnily enough, I was talking about this just the other day. This show, or the various shows that led to this show being this show, 3.5 years, and still nobody has followed our lead. I mean, in some ways, I'm kind of grateful, but kind of goes to show, doesn't it? And I'm just going to throw back to this SPOA thing, and I've put the link properly in the chat now. There are other companies out there that do more or less what I do, but they lack the commitment, and that, I think, is the difference between the SPOA and the previous organisers of that Scottish event. SPOA under the leadership of Callum McIntosh have the commitment. The others apparently did not. This is what is known as a Freudian slip, I think. I was just talking about the fact that nobody else has followed me down the live streaming path, and Dan Collins very kindly says, "That's because you are simply the beast, Mark." I think that's supposed to be best. It might be beast, I don't know. Could well be, but yeah, nobody else has followed us. Now, it seems that every major equipment manufacturer these days has some kind of data collection and management tool at its disposal. Sandvik is no exception. And if knowledge is power, then Sandvik and its customers are very powerful indeed. Mark my words, there will come a time when this industry has more people operating laptops than it has people operating machines. You heard it here first.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
I feel like we talk about Volvo and its electric machines at least once a fortnight. Well, it's that time again.
Skistar's DNA is to create active vacation and getting people out to the nature. Not only skiing, but also hiking, bicycling, or doing other outdoor activities together with your family or friends. At Skistar, we have high ambitions with our sustainability work. We need to protect the nature that gives so much back to us as human beings.
We are in the progress of going over to more and more electric. Not 100% there, but we have pretty much all fields, some electric machinery and vehicles.
We see that Volvo has the same vision as we are. Great alliance. So doing this together with Volvo, we really are working for the future.
Yes, her name was Fanny, and if that amused you, go to the back of the class. Okay, I'd like to know when this became a thing because it is driving me mental. Back when I was doing a bit of media relations on the side of this, I had a client who apparently didn't trust email. He would send me an email, and while that email was still whizzing through cyberspace, he would phone me up to ask if it had arrived. That was annoying. But the reverse of it is even worse. There is a phone to prove it. Here it is. There is a phone sat on my desk. Unless I'm recording, it is always on. Now, people used to phone me up with information for a chat, for gossip, or on occasions, fairly regular occasions, to tell me that I was an idiot. Apparently, that's not how we do things anymore. Now, apparently, I receive an email asking if I can schedule in a phone call a week next Tuesday. How busy do people think I am? And whatever happened to spontaneous phone calls? Personally, I'm blaming COVID-19. The pandemic resulted in more people using systems like Zoom and Microsoft Teams because face-to-face meetings were impossible everywhere outside of 10 Downing Street, apparently. This has apparently spawned a new era in which people book meetings to discuss discuss things that could be resolved by a simple phone call. I fear that these are the same people that never send an email to a single person. They send each one to a minimum of 42, just to show how busy and important they are. Just to be clear, if you want to speak to me, just pick up the phone. Anyway, that's my gripe of the day. I'd love to hear yours. What is it that grinds your gears, gets your goat, and generally butters your parsnips? The daily gripe therapy session will return forthwith. Right, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to do this again because I think it looks great. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Have a great day. But if you have the time, the inclination, and nothing better to do, please stick around. The Craic will begin immediately after this final word from our key show sponsor. Right, let us wing our way back to... Oh, I like the sparkle on the glasses. That's lovely. I don't know quite how I'm doing that, but that does look very good. I tell you what, let me get some music in the background. What should we go for? I reckon we go for a bit of that. Yeah, loving that. Good morning, everyone. How are we all? Lots and lots and lots of comments today, which is always a pleasure to see. Who was first off the mark this morning? It was the Sprocket Man himself, Kenneth Hatcher. Morning, Ken. How are things in Welsh Wales? Is that just cloud, or is that just is it raining in your heart? I don't honestly know. Dan Cullen was second off the mark. Morning, Dan. Thank you very much indeed for being here. And Dan also says, happy 4th of July to our American friends. Yeah, didn't they make the right decision, eh? By getting out, getting away. They honestly, they must be watching Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman laughing up their sleeve right about now. There is Glenn Johnston. Good morning, Glenn. Thank you very much indeed for being here, as always. Dan Cullen just said top of the morning. There is Jeff Pinion, Mr. Brock, and also the provider. Some very smart t-shirts. Thank you very much indeed for that, Jeff. Wow, that's confusing. So we know that was Dan talking about this. I'm only going to use it sparingly, and to be perfectly honest, I just thought, just to ring the changes. We're now in the chat after the show, and I thought, ring the changes and just do something a little bit different. I do need to change the angle slightly though, because can't quite see. That's it. I want to see live on air, just so you know, that there, courtesy of Mr. Muirhead. Speaking of Mr. Muirhead, good morning, Mark. Good morning, guys. Happy birthday, the NHS 75 today. I would like to say it doesn't look a day over 50, but the NHS does look very, very tired indeed, through no fault of its own, it has to be said. There is Mark Whiting. Good morning, Mark. There is Nick Drew, the mighty Nick Drew, who must be packed. Are you packed yet, Nick? I know Nick is off on his holly bobs very soon, which is kind of what prompted today's question of the day, and we'll get to that in just a second. Let's have a look. Who else do we have here? Let's have a look. Dan Cullen, see the sad news where mother and kids died in Cambridgeshire fire was down to an electric-powered bike. Bloody hell. I didn't see that. Kind of quite pleased I didn't see that. And there is the mighty Steve Williamson. Steve, I'm literally finishing this show, walking down to the post office. I'm walking, I'm getting in my steps, and I'm taking your Brock package to the post office. Should be with you in a day or two. And there is Mr. Tunes himself, Jim Turner. Morning, Jim. How are you this morning, my friend? My question of the day, which I've just completely bypassed somehow. It was vacation or staycation. Are you planning to stay at home this year, or are you planning to travel further afield? Dan Cullen was first off the mark, and he is a staycation man. Can't say I blame you, to be honest. There's Steve Williamson. A vacation for a long holiday, staycation in a cabin in the UK for a few days. Good mix. Good mix. See, there's a large bit of me that likes the old cabin thing. Big fan of that. Just wish the cabins came with really super fast broadband. Just saying. Glenn Johnston is a staycation man this year. Kenneth Hatcher, who is forever concerned about our ability to produce enough electricity. We need that power station. I think that power station has actually stopped working. I'm assuming it is, because there'll be a fair amount of prep to go into the demolition and the ultimate taking down of those cooling towers. And they reckon the cooling towers will be on the floor by January next year. But point well taken. Whoever our LinkedIn user is doing both a staycation and a vacation, going to the British Grand Prix and to the US as well. My son Ollie is going to the British Grand Prix. He was at Wimbledon for hours yesterday. My two sons both went off to Wimbledon yesterday. Left here about 9 o'clock. They managed to watch Novak Djokovic warming up yesterday, and I think they were actually at Wimbledon itself for about 11 hours. Proper day full. Ken Hatcher. I think we've got one coal-fired power station left, and we need 3 to keep the lights on. It is a worry. It is a worry. It's not a worry now, but when winter rolls around, yeah. Gary Muirhead. Vacation off to Tenerife on the 22nd of July for 2 weeks. Can't wait. Gary, as much as I think you've deserved your holiday, it will not be the same around here without you. I sincerely hope that wherever you're staying in Tenerife has a decent Wi-Fi connection so that you can still tune in. Now, this is, as I say, the breaking news today is the fact that the UK Plant Operators Challenge, and I get the impression that they decided to host a Scottish leg of that championship to actually prove that this was in fact a UK operator challenge and not just an English operator challenge, but to pull the plug with just a few weeks left to go, bearing in mind the amount of work that must have gone in for the various sponsors and the SPOA, and the fact that they must have had people that are registered to actually take part, and then to pull the plug without a moment's notice, I think is a pretty poor show. And Steve actually says, I applied 3 times for that Plant Operator of the Year and got not a single reply. Maybe while you were applying, they sensed that the writing was on the wall and they were planning to back out. But if you can get along, Steve, please get along, take your video camera, and let us know what it's all about. Nothing would please me more than for that event to be an absolute rip-roaring success, to prove to the previous organisers, and I use the term organisers advisedly, that they were wrong to ditch at the last minute and drop everyone in it. Definitely, it's got my help and backing too. Gary Muirhead, not a great surprise, but thank you very much indeed for that. I'm sure Callum McIntosh will be delighted to hear that. Budgie Smugglers looked out, Gary. Steve, if you go to the Plant Operators Challenge, please send photos. Gary, if you're wearing Budgie Smugglers, please don't send photos. There's only so much a man's eyes can take. Stephen Guthrie says, morning folks, long time no see. Only yesterday, wasn't it? Felt like yesterday. Dan Cullen might be in Belper next week on a demo job of new houses, which means that you are probably in Jim Turner territory, I think. Just doing the geography in my head there. Question of the day, says Jim Turner. I probably enjoy a holiday in the UK more than abroad. We have such a massive amount of history packed into a relatively small space, and find travelling by plane a great big faff. Being stuck in a tube with a load of aggravating people is not my idea of fun. I have to agree with that. And how's this for weird, right? So I've been quite fortunate this year. I've done a fair bit of travelling, making up for lost time because of COVID and everything else. And you take me off to Bergamo in Italy, or you take me to Verona in Italy, you take me to Prague in the Czech Republic, and all of a sudden I'm looking at ancient architecture thinking, oh, isn't this fantastic? It's on my own doorstep. I was born and raised in London. London has got history coming out of its pores, and yet take me overseas and I suddenly get all excited about it. Here, take it for granted. There is the link for that Scottish Plant Operators Association Challenge, which is on the 22nd of July, up Dundee-ish. I'm not an expert. It's Errol Airfield. I'm not an expert on Scottish geography, but that's where it is. I did have a very quick look last night, and I must admit I didn't finish the search to see just how easy it might be for me to jump on a train and actually pop up and take a look around. I'm going to go and have another look at that just to see what the score is. I'll keep you posted. Dan Cullen was impressed by CJ Charlton's Crusher. Yeah, I was impressed with the Crusher. I'm also impressed with their filming of the Crusher as well. There is Jim Turner saying, if you are in Belper, I'll nip over to have the crack. Which is what we're doing now. Stephen Guthrie, question today. I love a drive around the Highlands more than abroad. Beautiful up there with white beaches. Yeah, white beaches, which are lovely. The sea, not so much. But I have to say, first time I ever drove through the Highlands, which was on my way to do a John O'Groats to Land's End run. One of the most stunning places I've ever been. And the bizarre thing is, again, it's the same thing. It's on our doorstep. I've been to Norway. You drive around the fjords in Norway. Beautiful. Drive around the fjords. They probably call them something else. But drive around the fjords in Finland. Beautiful. And we get all excited about it. And yet, Scotland has got that as well. And yet, we don't talk about it. There you are. I am simply the beast. I am simply the beast. I've always said that. Steve Williamson says, you come up to the Highlands for the Black Isle show, biggest in the north of Scotland. The problem I have, and I'll say the same for this as I'll say for other sort of county shows and stuff like that, it's such a bloody long way. For me to go to the Highlands, I'm probably looking at minimum 3 days. And that, even if it happens to be over a weekend, that basically means I don't get a weekend, or it means I've got to give up doing this. I realise it's no excuse, and I didn't use that excuse to go to Conexpo. I didn't use that excuse to go to Balmer, but it's not exactly local, much as I'd like to do it. Question today, Jeff Pinion says, vacation. Any chance I get to go to the Maldives, I take it. Don't blame me one bit. Never been there, but it looks lovely. Having not driven a track dumper since, says Stephen Guthrie, having not driven a track dumper for a while, I've now had the pleasure of using 5 old relics to transport water for rigs over the last 2 weeks. Is that good? Is that bad? I'd like to know. Steel wrist on that Volvo, Gary. Was that the one working with our friend Fanny? Stop it. It's a name. Peter McKenna. Morning, I'm here. Been watching around Tesco's. No fitters out as yet. You're not having much of a run of things, are you, Peter? Jim Turner says, I did hear the other day a crowd near me has just ordered a few electric Volvo dumpers for their quarry. Interesting stuff. I'm with you on that gripe. Yeah, it seems like such a strange thing. You know, we've for more than I don't know the maths. It must be roughly 100 years. You want to speak to somebody, pick the phone up, and you dial their number, and you say, "Hello, I want to talk to you about a thing." And then you have, and you know, if that happens and I'm busy, I'll say, "Any chance we can catch up in half an hour when I've finished fannying around?" Sorry, Fanny. Fannying around doing whatever it is I'm doing now. And now, here's an email booking a telephone call for 2 weeks' time. Am I supposed to prepare for that? Am I supposed to go away and do homework? Or just phone me up? Makes no sense at all. Question of the day. Sat on the banks of Loch... Is that Loch Striven? Striven? Is that salmon? Is that trout? What is Loch Striven? What type of fishing do we do there, I wonder? Why do we get pleasure of side views today? Because I can. I just going to throw it up just to show you what we can do. How do I do that? No, it's not that one. I can't remember how to get them side by side. There we are, that's better. So, as some of you that have been watching for the last few days will know, I have a new camera. I have a new vlogging camera. It's sat there. It's a nice wide angles, which means you can see the collection of baseball caps up above my head. To be perfectly honest, it was sat on my desk. There is a utility on the thing that allows me to use it as a webcam, and it shoots in 4K, so the image quality should be very, very good indeed, even though we're only broadcasting in 1080p. So the quality should be very good, even though it's not. There is a light there. If there was a light there, it would probably look a little bit crisper. But I'm using it basically just to get more out of the camera, but also for Saturday Social. With this, obviously, I'm reading the chat, so I need to be looking at the screen. When I'm doing Saturday Social, I could quite easily do that, and that would be a much nicer thing to do. So that's the only reason I'm doing it, just because I can. I have an offer to go to Belper, Derby, and demo new builds as previous contractor messed up the design. So make sure that you speak to our friend Jim Turner and get yourselves together. This is like Tinder for plant people or something. Still not packed will be last minute thing, I think. My son, who I mentioned earlier, Ollie, is the master of last minute packing. He will organise a holiday months in advance, and on the morning that he is due to fly, he starts throwing things into the washing machine and regularly goes abroad with his clothes still wet in carrier bags in his bag or in his suitcase. Can't be bothered to pack any earlier. But the one thing I will say, Nick, if you've not packed, stand by, because your t-shirt, your Despe t-shirt, is winging its way. You might even get to wear that while you're away. Peter McKenna says, gripe of the day, companies that aren't honest when they should be. The Thomas Plant saga continues. Bloody abysmal. Aren't honest when they should be. Isn't that why the SPOA has had to rescue this operator challenge up in Scotland? I believe it is. Stay at home by the looks of it, Ken Hatcher. You wouldn't want to stray too far from the mint anyway, would you? If they're new builds, they're not take much levelling. No, that's absolutely true. Question days. Doesn't feel like a holiday to me unless I'm on a plane away to be somewhere sunny. I take your point. It's just that bit of it, as somebody said, being stuck on a plane full of aggravating people and their farts, not my idea of fun. I have no issue whatsoever actually going on holiday. I have no issue with flying. I'm not afraid of flying. I just really, really dislike it now. 3 hours before takeoff, being at the airport and all of that. Just an absolute tosh. David Wiley is going to the US, and it's David Wiley. Oh, right, okay. Thank you very much indeed for that, David, and good morning to you. Well, David, you're a fine Scot. Are you going to this Scottish Plant Owners Association event, 22nd of July, Errol Airfield? I'd like to think you are. Our friend Bigfoot, Graham Williams. When everyone wants to charge their electric cars with no electricity around. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Obviously, you're right. Lou Carney. Morning, late to the party, been on a Zoom. You don't have to answer this, Lou, but was that a Zoom that could have actually been dealt with by telephone? Don't answer. Peter, fancy Belper Diggs got? No idea. Big delighted Jim Turner got company to finally get accommodation. Took a bit of talking, but got there. Our friend Mick Saunders is in the house. Good morning, Mick. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Steve Williamson is back to the Black Isle show, going to the biggest show to date, apparently. Steve also says he had an Aunt Fanny. To which Gary Muirhead said, sexy. I'm assuming this was her name and not her nickname, because that would be awful. Stephen Guthrie was enjoyable doing something different, but now been asked to stay with them for the next 12 weeks. It's work, good pay, but the 12 on, 2 off isn't quite cutting it being away. No, I can understand that. Mick Saunders, not sure if anyone was listening to Sky News earlier. They were talking about ULEZ. Some young biddy said it's possible to use cargo bikes if people can't afford an electric van. Can you imagine going down Brixton Hill with a ton of sand and cement on a push bike? The mind boggles at times, yeah, absolutely. It's like our friend Ken Hatcher talking about power stations. They haven't thought this through at all, have they? Striven is a sea lock that used to house a submarine base. Mackerel and salmon. Mackerel. Oh. I had mackerel just last week. Delicious. Delicious. Nick Drew says, ideal Mark, I'll look out for it. Yeah, that is a Despe t-shirt, which is winging its way. Steve Williams, we need a Diggers and Dozers private jet. We will all chip in. Feel free. Steve, if you can organise that, then the Black Isle show, I'll be all over it. Yeah. Bigfoot on one foot in the same room. Yeah. Just so that you know, our friend Graham, I'm struggling with names this morning. Where is he? Graham Williams. I spoke to Graham Williams last week. He is our dyslexic friend who is having real issues getting his CS card sorted out. But in addition to being dyslexic, he also has size 17 feet. 17. I mean, he's a big lad. Apparently, he's about 6'4", 6'5", but size 17. And as we all know, Peter McKenna, he's blessed with one fine foot and nothing else. So, big foot and 1 foot in the same room. I couldn't plan this. There's an old Spike Milligan gag when he was talking about being in the Second World War. And he said, they sometimes got so bored while they were on patrol that they'd sit around and count each other's legs. And there would be panic if they came up with an odd number. Peter, you would have caused panic in the ranks. Question of the day, off to the Philippines soon to meet up with a cousin I've not seen for 50 years. Should be an interesting journey. How fantastic is that? How fantastic. Meeting up with somebody you haven't seen for 50 years. Fair bit to catch up on, I would say. Have I missed much? 31 minutes on hold for a 15-second phone call. Well, I mean, obviously, Chris, you missed the dancing girls, you missed the money that we gave away earlier, and you missed Fanny. You'll have to go back and look now. I had an Uncle Dick. There is a story within my family, and this is absolutely true. My wife's grandmother, God rest her, apparently had a boyfriend when she were but young, and his name, get this, Basil Ballsover. Basil Ballsover. Yeah, I will indeed be there. I go to the Classic Plant Working event every year, so there's another person who's going to be supporting Callum McIntosh and the SPOA Halls. Well done on that, David. He had a mad sense of humour. If your name's Dick, you would have a mad sense of humour, wouldn't you? My best mate was Steve Adams, and his mum was Fanny. Brilliant. I regularly see heavily laden cargo bikes trundling down Brixton Road. Oh dear. Dan, that was Mike Wolf, by the way, editor of the mighty World Highways. If you're into roads and bridges and stuff, and you like a bit of expert editorial, go check out World Highways. Mike Wolf is the main man on all things roads and bridges. Hey, did you speak to him about the guy I was talking to about CSCS? I haven't yet, Dan, purely because, as he often does, our friend Mick Norton has basically taken up this as a bit of a mission, and I think there is conversations going on there, but I'll keep that in mind. New sponsorship in talks today with Conquip to do some product reviews. Good luck with that, Steve. Would love to see that. Chris Ford says, at my age, I've been missing Fanny for years. Yeah. What is it with the word Fanny today? I can't believe this. Steve Williamson is planning to do a proper review of the Conquip equipment, and says no dancing or fannying about. But have you practiced, Steve? You remember, you have to have your photograph done like this, because apparently that's a thing. Funnily enough, Dan Cullen had a lot of uncles. Always said if my mum was a good sport, if it's nothing to do... What? Always said if my mum was a good sport, it's nothing to do with anyone. Okay, I'm with you now. Yeah, so fancy coming out of... I'm going to leave that there. I'm not even going to say that. Try getting a size 17 work boot. It's hard. I would imagine it is. Nick Drew will back me up on this. It doesn't happen that often, but sometimes particularly when you're going to sites overseas, rather than expecting you to transport your gear with you. I like when I went to see Despe over in Italy a couple of weeks ago. They actually phone you up and say, what size boots should we put on order? And I'm a regular size 8. My son Fred is a 9. Dead easy. Can you imagine going back to them and saying a 17, please? I mean, knowing Despe, they would probably weld 2 size 8s together and probably make a 17 and make it look cool at the same time. But yes. Right, I think that's going to do us. Now, can I get that back? I can. I can have 2 views. I just don't know how to control them. So I think that's going to pretty much wrap things up for us today. That's nearly 48 minutes. Bloody 17. Oh my God, that's bigger than a foot. Yeah, it's more than a foot long foot. What is the average foot? I mean, I know we talk about measuring in feet, but I think my feet are actually about 9 inches long. So my feet aren't a foot long, bizarrely. I know that's a weird thing to have noticed. And quite while I was measuring my feet, frankly, I can't honestly remember. But yes, 17. His feet must arrive a good half an hour before he does. Wow. Right, people, that's going to do us for today, I think. I'm just going to say very... what was that? 12-inch is a foot, I think. I know, but are your feet, Dan, actually a foot long? Mine aren't. Even with boots on. Even with my finest winkle pickers on, they're not a foot long. Oh, I haven't got small feet. They're in proportion. They're all absolutely fine. You know what they say about men with big shoes? Or big feet, rather? Yes, big socks. Graham Williams, I put it out there. Who can get me a size 17 boot? Booth safety boots. If anyone knows where our friend Graham Williams can get a pair of size 17 safety boots, hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. I'd like to see a pair. I'd like to go and film a pair of size 17 safety boots if we can make that happen. Now I'm going to finish today. I am going to throw it up one more time. If you let me see, can I do that? I can. If you would like to attend this Scottish Plant Owners Association Operator Challenge, you can do so following the link in the chat. There you are. It is in the chat now. I really, really, really hope that the SPOA and their various sponsors who have stuck with it regardless managed to pull off a fantastic event. And I hope, has anybody ever, I'm going to digress very slightly here. Has anyone ever heard the story about when Michael Caine first became famous? And when he became famous, he also became quite wealthy and decided he quite fancied himself a Rolls Royce. So he took himself off to the Rolls Royce dealer on London's Park Lane, walked in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. They looked him up and down and completely ignored him. So he, disgruntled, took his business elsewhere. And then, having bought his Rolls Royce, he apparently spent an entire day driving up and down Park Lane past the dealer that had treated him so badly, going like that as he went past. I sincerely hope that Callum McIntosh and the combined forces of Morris Leslie, Kubota, JCB, I hope they pull off an absolutely blinding event and then spend an entire day going past the original organisers, going like that as they drive past. And if they do, please film it and I will play it on the show. People, go and have a fantastic day. I hope you appreciated the double view today. Not sure whether I'll bring it back again. I'm going to do it on the Saturday show, certainly. But yeah, we may throw that in from time to time. No, I don't want that one. I want that one because that looks less weird. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day. Stay safe. Please look after yourselves and hope to see you back here again on the morrow. Do bring it back, says Dan Cullen. After the initial confusion, apparently he likes the double view, so it may well be back. Watch this space. We shall see. And Peter McKenna says, bye all, take care, have a safe day, and don't do anything I wouldn't do, which I guess leaves us all with plenty of scope. So I'm going to go and do something really stupid. But first, I need to go to the post office to make sure that Steve Williamson gets his Brock goodies. Everybody, go have a fantastic day. See you tomorrow. All the best.